Hello, Pocatello.
Hello, Pocatello.
Hello, Pocatello. Welcome to Hello Pocatello, brought to you by Restyle Studios, where we highlight the people making a difference in our community. I'm your host, Keith Cook. Today's guest is Nick Hottmann. Hello, Nick.
Howdy. How we doing?
Doing pretty good. You want to tell us who you are and what you do?
Okay. Well, I'm Nick Hottmann, and I jokingly tell people I'm a professional colorer, but I am a professional artist with multiple focuses on multiple mediums.
Right on. So is there anything in this town that anybody might recognize that you do?
Yes, I am a mural painter, and so there are at least a dozen different murals that have been painted in historic downtown proper, but then in the city itself. I've restored neon signs like the Cowboy Oil sign on 5th Street and painted murals. The Let's Play Pocatello one in downtown at Lookout Point Park. Painted murals inside the Marshall Public Library, on the side of Brew House, Dude's Public Market, Clean Coffee. Yeah, I've painted a lot of things, a lot of different places.
So if people don't know you, they've definitely seen the work that you've done.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty common that if you've been in and around Pocatello someplace, even Blackfoot and Idaho Falls, then you've come across one of my murals. So even if you, like you said, you don't know me by name or face, you have seen my work or seen my style or seen my little NH signature on things.
Right on. So are you from here or did you move here?
No, I was born and raised in Michigan, just outside of Detroit, and in a small town called Oxford. And I lived in the downtown, which is called the Village of Oxford. So yes, I can confidently say I was born and raised in a village. And moved to Detroit for art school, and then my wife and I moved to Texas, and I've been now moved up here for 7 years. I've called Pocatello home.
Very nice, very nice. So, is it mainly doing murals most of the time, or do you do a lot of other types of things?
I'm a full-time graphic designer as well as a muralist, so I've done... Oh, goodness. I do custom shoes, like custom painted shoes through Vans, painted hats, fine art. So I do canvas work and commissions as well as murals. I recently opened up an art curating firm that shows work at the Martlet. And then on top of that, I still have my company, NH Creative, that does full-time marketing and graphic design. So concentration on logos, business cards, stickers, social media management. I always joke with people, if you can think it, I can make it. So that's kind of where the graphic firm comes from. So signage and everything.
Nice. So who were your early artistic influences that kind of got you into art, and how'd you start that whole journey?
I'd say that from an early age, I liked doodling and drawing. Big influences growing up were all the Charlie Brown and Snoopy, so the Peanuts characters. Calvin and Hobbes was a big influence. And then started watching Disney movies. I got to the point where, I'm older than a lot of people. So I used to pause my VCR and I would try and redraw the scene that was from something. So like when the genie in Aladdin is turning into the dragon, I would try and draw that scene. And so I just kind of was always influenced by... I don't want to say the OG, but the original cartoons and comics. So I was a big Family Circus guy, and Charlie Brown, Looney Tunes, Chuck Jones was a huge influence. Bill Watterson, who created Calvin and Hobbes. So, And then as I got older, I leaned more into I need to be a professional artist. So I focused on industrial design.
So you mean a paid artist?
well, paid artist, yeah. Growing up in Michigan and especially in the Detroit area, the auto industry was a huge influence. And so Bob Lutz, who was the guy that designed the PT Cruiser and the HHR, was a huge influence in his design aesthetic. But I really fell in love with street art. So having Keith Haring was a big influence at that time. And so a lot of people now even can see in my work, it's bold and bright colors. It's high contrast colors. It's poppy, and that's a lot of that Keith Haring influence of what I did for street art, and tried to make the aesthetic where art should be affordable and it should be for everyone. And so that's kind of where that influence came from.
Yeah, and it kind of seems like a lot of the murals that kind of pop, you can be driving in a car and they're kind of adjusted for that aspect.
Yeah.
You know, that even if it's just for a second, you kind of get the whole feeling instead of, you know, even at a distance, just the thickness of the lines and things like that. It's kind of have to adjust for that.
Yeah, and that's true. So like look at Point Park, for example. It's got the big text that says, "Let's play Pocatello." And it's big in navy and it's outlined in white. So it contrasts with pops. So it's readable from across the street at the library. But a lot of the stuff that's on trafficked roads, I try to keep text off of them because for me, I'm a wanderer when I drive. I look at everything that's tweaking and sparkling and whatever. It's like I got to look at things. So I try to make my work that's a little bit more visible for like flash quicking, like looking at something quickly and moving on for that visibility, because I don't want someone to be, you know, rubbernecking and then causing an accident or anything that's over a mural. So stuff that's on heavily trafficked roads, I try to keep pretty clean and simple without it, you know, having to be this complex thing you got to sit there and analyze.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you see your murals contributing to the identity and spirit of Pocatello or other communities that you paint in?
Well, here in Pocatello in particular, since it's Hello Pocatello, I think I met with Dennis Klitschers, who owns Station Square, and he wanted to paint something on the back of the building. It's the big 3-story building where the little patio is for Off the Rails now. And he wanted something different on the back of the building, just something to change up the aesthetic and the vibe. And there hadn't been a big mural movement in a while. There was some previous muralists that had came in that were back in the 70s and 80s that painted on the side of Elmer's and Bourbon Barrel, those kind of things, but they were more landscapes. And so we went through the historic downtown commission and through the city to get permits and stuff like that. And so the big astronaut on the side of the building and the feather and my little noggin guy that I do with the 3D glasses, all that stuff was really, I don't want to say radical, but it was kind of a big shift for a lot of people here because they were used to landscapes and more nature scened kind of stuff. And so my stuff coming in was a little bit of a shift. And I don't say by any means that I was the OG, like I was the Renaissance guy by any means, because there's been dozens of artists that have been coming together to paint the town. But I feel like that really kind of helped open that door to where a lot of people realize that murals aren't scary. They're like, oh, it's nothing that's, oh, it's not going to be something that's going to radically shift everything, or it's not going to shift this whole political climate, or, you know, the quote unquote, oh, the hippies are coming in and ruining everything. I don't think it's any of that anymore. And I think that a lot of people were like, oh, murals don't have to be graffiti, and they don't have to be all this negative stuff or these hate crime pieces, and they can be really nice, well put together pieces. And so it's allowed a lot of other artists besides myself just to be able to have the opportunity to help, you know, cover over some bad spots or some blemishes, or make a cool thing even cooler, or having this little pocket mural that's now a destination for people to go see. So the murals in town have started developing their own life, where they're becoming a tourist thing. People like to drive around and look at them and try and find them. And I think that's a really cool opportunity for Pocatello.
I think also, you know, when you put some of these murals up, they change, I guess you could say, the vibe, but they change how people view that space and can ultimately change how that space is used.
Sure.
You know, so I do think that a lot of times, you know, if done really well, or depending on subject matter, that they can have quite a bit of power in the community to kind of help revitalize a space or an area that may be known for not so savory stuff going on, and make it more of a community space and helping the community be a little bit more appealing, not just for the people that live here, but the people that are traveling through.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, an example of that is working with the city and the police department for the last couple of years. The police department has done their DARE program with their youth for the last couple of years, and Officer Johnson and Officer Barchi have reached out to me to work on different things over the last few years. And we've done everything from, painting raccoons on the side of a garage door to the last couple of years we've been working with the city and with Parks and Rec, and we've been painting murals on bathrooms. And so we've got one on Centennial Park and one in Raymond Park. And the last couple of years I've had to go ahead of time and go pre-prep the walls because there's been tagging or something that's not appropriate on the building. And so I've gone and painted them, like washed them previously. And since we've done those parks now, they've been more maintained and they've been changed, and the murals have stayed now. And like these kids are really excited to go back and see. And some of that, as you said, like the riffraff and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When art looks intentional, people have a tendency to be like, oh, I shouldn't mess with that because that's an intentional thing and that's cool.
Yeah, somebody took time.
Someone took time for it. So, and a lot of these kids are really excited. They go back and it's something as simple as painting, cool stripes or making a bathroom look like paint is dripping down the sides of the walls. It's something as simple as that, but they take a lot of pride and they get really excited about it, and they want to go back and show people that they did this. And I think that's even like an example of that, where you can just change something that's been this graffiti covered mess that all of a sudden it gets painted intentionally, and it changes the vibe and the feel of the park or the environment you're in, for sure.
Yeah. So along those lines, what role do you think that public art plays in building community pride and connection?
Well, there's a statistic that I read somewhere, so I can't even tell you where I got it, and I might even be wrong at this point. But I think they said up to 70% of businesses that have had a mural applied on their building have seen an increase in sales. And I don't think it's anything else outside of the fact that I think people are tired of seeing taupe and tired of seeing beige on everything. And then, and they have their place. Don't get me wrong. I think everything has its place, but where there's been so much drabness and negativity and just bad juju, whatever you want to call it, that's been out there, I think something as simple as painting some cool flowers on the side of a building, have people stop and be like, oh, that's different. That's not a taupe wall anymore. And then they want to see what that is. And then that has increased people coming in and being like, I need to stop there. I'm going to get a picture. While I'm there, let's do it. So something as simple as like the angel wings. And those are, I don't want to say they're played out, but it's like every city has got a set of angel wings you stand in front of or something. And I think they're great because it makes you want to stop and pause and take a selfie or do a picture there. And then while you're there, you're like, oh, that's a cool little coffee shop, or oh, that's a cool little mall, or oh, that's a neat little, boutique. Let's stop in there and check it out. So I feel like, to me, public art helps warrant the attention and garner the attention. And I think that a lot of people are just nice to see something refreshed. And who knows, maybe in 10 years, 20 years from now, people are going to be like, there's murals everywhere. Let's just paint everything, go back to taupe or gray or whatever. I mean, you see fast food restaurants are shifting from these iconic pop arty, nostalgic McDonald's and Jack in the Box to everything's going gray brick and mortar now, because I think that clean aesthetic is what people want. And so who knows, it could be something different in the road. But for the time being, I think that the public art really helps gain attention for a lot of these businesses. And so I have a lot of people that are calling me just because they want to have something neat on the side of their building, and it doesn't have to say, Bob's Tire Mart. Sometimes they just want something that's like some cool mountains and pine trees and birds, because it's something just nice to look at as you drive by versus a gray wall. A gray wall,
or like Disneyland uses no-see-um green.
Yep.
To hide their utilities and science, buildings and all that
science
stuff.
Is completely wild. I've been studying that for the last couple of years. It's a wild phenomenon of what Disney can do. It's so cool.
And, like the first type of, I guess, public art I encountered when I was growing up in Blackfoot is you'd see these little daisies just painted on, little tiny 1-2 inch daisies pointed on fire hydrants or on the side of a ditch box or something like that, or on the side of a mailbox. And you just see them, and then they disappear after a couple of years, and you'd see new ones over here, new ones over there. And as I got older, I found out, there's just a guy that just walking around town and he just paint daisies on stuff.
Yep.
But it was kind of engaging, kind of like the alphabet game of trying to find, where the next thing was when you're walking to school or whatever. And
See, that's fun.
you just notice those little things. And I do think there's a lot of underutilized signage space or underutilized space, just generally around a lot of these towns where you've got entire backs or sides of buildings that are exposed that, could be used to kind of draw a certain type of people that they're looking for to come and enjoy the space and have a lot of good times.
Yeah.
Instead of drab rundown city,
Sure.
Like you're saying with the work with the neons and things like that,
Yeah, I think it's cool. And I think we're really kind of on an art culture upswing here in Pocatello in particular, between, the Neon Festival and the new parks that have opened up and the skate park that just opened up. I think Darren, who owns Decadence, mentioned, he's like, I want to have skatable art. And I'm like, that's a pretty cool way to put that, like things that are more interactive. And I think that's a really neat direction to go. But I also think that it's healthy for us to have, more artists than just me, for example. Yes, I know that, to my own horn, I know that I'm pretty out there. I'm pretty exposed. People recognize my work. They've seen it around the area, around the country. It's like I'm nationally traveled now, and that's great. And I'm happy for that. But like when I go to these other places where I'm in, Alabama or Utah or Texas or Michigan, I'm one of hundreds of artists. And I think that that's great because I think different art for different people. And, I'm not a portrait artist. Like I'm not one of these people that's going to have like the realistic portrait done on the side of the building. It's just not my skill set.
Yeah.
And I don't have that ability. And I know what I'm in and I've got my lane and I feel pretty comfortable about that. Whereas there's another artist that might have a completely different aesthetic. I know that I have more of a masculine touch on things, pretty hard lines and bold contrasting stuff. I love seeing more of a feminine touch on things, more floral, things that are more elegant looking. I think it's a nice change of pace because if everything in this town has my name on it, people are going to get really burnt out quickly. So I think that having a variety of artists and a variety of mediums and a variety of events, and you don't obviously want to paint the entire town in 1 year. It's nice to have, new growth and attention. And I think it's a great opportunity. I know that there was a mural fest, goodness, 3 or 4 years ago now at this point. And there was an artist that came in from California and one that came in from Idaho Falls. And I think that's great. I think it's neat that we have other visions and other varieties of stuff in our town. So it's not just like the town that Nick painted. I like having that variety of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you share a time when someone told you your art made a personal impact on them?
I mean, obviously the more casual, the more consistent ones is when someone asks me to do like a pet portrait of their pet that recently passed or something like that. People have a tendency to get emotional because art can be very powerful. It connects everyone differently. And I think that's what makes us human. And I think that's what allows us to be who we are. Mm-hmm. Someone that finds a painting at Hobby Lobby might be the greatest thing that they've ever seen in their life because it just connects with them and it just drives into their soul. And that's great. And if that's how that art attaches to you, it does. I know when I go to an art museum, I look at a Piet Mondrian painting, and that's the big red and yellow geometric like squares. Like that resonates with me because I know his history and I know who he is and I've watched his work and I'm like, this is just unreal to know that this person painted this stuff. Seeing the Mona Lisa in person might really drastically impact someone's life. So to the roundabout of that saying it is, so doing the pet portraits and stuff kind of, resonate with people.
Yeah.
In terms of like something that is a me piece, I've done a couple of paintings in my life and I've had someone just walk up to me directly and be like, that piece resonates with me. And it's really nice feeling. And it's like, well, good. I'm glad you were like on that same wavelength, that same vibe as I am. And some people might interpret things differently, which is why I leave a lot of my paintings untitled, because if I title it, then it gives a direction.
Yeah.
And I don't want someone to be like, oh, that title means that's the direction. And then that shifts how they feel. But a couple of years back, there was a high school shooting in my hometown, and I didn't know what I could try and do to help. I donated, my month's salary and stuff like that to the victims, because four children were lost in it. And I didn't feel like that was really enough. So I talked to the city and I talked to the stuff, and we built I painted a mural on the side of this building that wound up becoming a park long term. And it's just really cool that I still, I get goosebumps talking about it. There's still a lot of people that come in, they talk to me because they see my signature on it. And they tell me thank you, and it's really nice to see this, and it's a really good opportunity. So to me personally, and it's not a memorial piece. It doesn't have, tragically lost it or anything like that. It's just a clean lettered mural, and it says Oxford, Michigan, and it's got the four hearts up in the upper corner. And then there's a bird next to it, and it says, "We will rise up." And so it's subtle enough to where if you know, but the average person driving by just sees the word Oxford, and they're like, okay, it's a cool mural. But getting messages from people like that tell me that's really helpful for them, that's a huge, I don't want to say emotional, but it does connect with me, and it makes me feel like that's where I grew up. That's where I graduated high school. A lot of those kids, people that were there, my nephew was in the school when it happened. It's those could be my kids, and those are my friends that I grew up with. It's their kids. And so having that connection happen with them, as well as being a part of COVID era, because that's when my nephew graduated, was with the COVID and the shooting. It's they've had a hard high school year. So having people come up and talk to me about that is just really, it makes me feel like, okay, I did something right. So it's kind of a nice feeling.
Well, helping the community and things like that.
Sure. And it wasn't anything that it's not like I built a memorial, or it's not like I repaved the roads. It's I literally painted something on the side of a building that people can go look at and take pictures of. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just something that really resonated with the right way and hit at the right time. And the intention of it was just to donate and give something back, because I wanted to be able to be a part of it. And so it was really, it's still years later, 3 or 4 years later, I still have people messaging me being like, this just really helped, and thank you. And I'm like, it's really rewarding, and it feels good in my heart that the intentions were there to try and help, and they're still helping.
Do you feel like that's kind of may have changed the way that you deal with nonprofits and things like schools and other organizations outside of, your normal business stuff that you do?
I don't know if it necessarily shifted my direction, but I've always had a place in my heart for small businesses, nonprofits, anyone that wants to go out there and say, hey, I want to help my community, or I want to help people, or the small businesses that are I know that this is, X, Y, or Z. I know I could just go work at Starbucks, and I could eventually own my own Starbucks, but I feel like I want to do something different. Glean Coffee, for example, they do something completely different, and they have their pour over campaigns where they give money back to other charities and groups. And I'm like, that's really cool. So me, that's where my heart is. And so I'm a Kind Community Board member here. I've done work with Civitan and Revive at 5 and United Way and the Southeast Idaho Pride groups. It's I've done a lot of different nonprofit and community outreach stuff for people, just because they need all the help they can get. They have the right intentions for the right reasons. And then even go back to the schools. I painted the teachers lounge for Highland High School, and I donated that because I feel like teachers are an underappreciated sector here. Mm-hmm. And they need that, and they need that love. And I know that the school, especially Highland, do with the fire and everything else, and the bond, and I'm not getting into any of that, so we're just going to skip over that part. But I just think the teachers need some attention, and I think they need a little love. And so Michelle Mitchell, who was part of the Highland group out there, reached out to me, and I was like, yeah, let's do this, and I want to be able to donate this back and give this time because it is important. I think schools are an underappreciated part of our lives, and so between the schools and the nonprofits, yeah, I really have a soft spot for them, and so I really try to help where I can.
Oh, for sure. Well, and speaking about the schools, are there any people that you've kind of taken under your wing when it comes to art, or anybody that you've kind of worked with in maybe developing their artistry at all?
Well, I've had a couple of kids, young kids I feel like I've helped open up the opportunity for them to paint and create some new work. I've gone out to Grace Lutheran School a couple times and talked to their students about, what you could do to be an artist or how you could, teach yourself or do these other opportunities. I've had a couple of students that have worked with me on projects back in Michigan that have now kind of really taking a liking to it and have found a calling, and a couple of them are even going to college for art, and that's really awesome. But yeah, I'm always down for trying to help out people and learn new skills and bringing people along for the ride as long as they want to put in the work and climb a ladder and sweat when it's 98 degrees outside and know you're going to get sunburnt and be tired, but art can be very rewarding, especially when it's done the right way. And I feel like a lot of these younger kids are looking for something like that. So you don't have to be a YouTube star in order to be successful as an artist.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, art isn't always just on a canvas. And I didn't realize that till I got older and older and older,
Oh, yeah.
Like you're out there in a boom truck sometimes, or on a ladder clear up in the air, or, like you're saying, 90, 100 degree weather, wind, whatever, and trying to make that come to life. So it's not just, sit back and think and
Sure.
put a little dot of paint on the thing. Sometimes it's getting real dirty and messy.
Yeah. I was going to say not only that, but it's like what a lot of people don't put together is when someone says they're a professional artist, sure, most people associate as being, a Picasso or a Van Gogh where you're making this work and you're selling it. But a majority of those people became successful after they died. And not to be that depressing person, but it's what it is. So a lot of people don't understand, but you can go to college. You can go like as a middle school, high school student right now. There's so many free apps like Canva and stuff like that. You can YouTube, you can start designing, you can start doodling, you can start drawing. There's so many new technologies and resources right now that you could do a lot of the stuff that I didn't have the ability to learn until after I got into college. And, having a good fine arts program in a school is really important. I did sculpture, I did ceramics. I wanted to be a sculptor when I first went to school. And I think that's a unique thing where most people don't even put together like this microphone that's in front of me. That's been designed by an industrial designer, which is an art. And then an engineer made the actual work together, which is another art. And then a fabricator there's so many different labels inside of an art spectrum, but so many people scope it as saying, oh, you're a professional artist. That means you're a painter. Well, there's 8,000 different quote unquote artists in the world that could be under any label. So creating this podcast is an art. I think it's such a broad term, but people scope it into this one little pigeonhole thing where being a professional artist could be so many different things.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of advice would you give to young creatives who want to make an impact through art?
Screw up a lot. And
kind of like the Miss Frizzle, get messy,
yeah,
make mistakes.
I think I'm going to misquote someone, I bet, but I think it was Picasso that every child was born an artist. The difficulty is keeping them that way then when they grow up. It's some sort of term like that. And, they said every artist was once an amateur. And I think that's really true. I think just get out there and have fun and be who you are. Don't let, stereotypes or politics or religion or anything like that, pigeonhole you into a box. If you want to be that person that's out there and you want to have your hair blue, make your hair blue. If you want to go out there and paint. If you want to go draw. If you want to be that human being that's just like, I don't need to be married. I just want to be a single person my whole life. great. Do who you need to be. And that's because you can't make healthy art if you're not happy with who you are.
Yeah. Kind of even, along those lines, I got looking at the statistics, and it says that most podcasts that start out only have 3 episodes. And so we're on number 4, you're number 4. So we're doing good and breaking the mold.
All right. No, I think it's healthy for people. I did an interview recently, and I told someone that I don't care who you are, where you come from, what you believe. You can be anything you want to be. And I love everyone for who they are, and I think it's appreciative of that. And maybe that's just the artist in me, that I just find and I see the potential in everything and everyone. And I see a wall, and I'm like, that could be 85 different things. And I could look at another human being, and I'm like, you could be 85 different things. And I think that that's what makes us just beautiful potential, that we can just be whatever we wanted to do. Like, I can sit here and I can paint my nails because I want to. If I wanted to shave my beard off today, I can because I want to. If I wanted to wear a tube top, that would be scary, but I could.
Yeah, if I shaved my beard off, right. I think my wife would get mad at me.
Yeah, that would be a problem. But like, I just think that we as a human race, I think we just need to be more embracive of the curiosity and stop trying to fit in this mold. Yeah. So that'd be my advice for anyone that wants to be creative. Stop fitting a mold.
Yeah, that kind of touches on one of the questions I was going to ask, of whether or not you see your work as becoming a conversation with the community, and how so. And I do think like it's kind of a back and forth thing. When you put art out there, you're kind of making a statement, so to speak, and it's based on the other person of how they see that. And like you were saying earlier, not putting a name on it, but letting somebody interpret that art for themselves. And,
Sure. I think it's really raw. And I think, going into the mental health side of things a little bit, because it's been a lot of my journey the last couple of years is trying to figure out my own mental health and my own pathways and who I am and what I want to do. Because, as a human being, we're always evolving. We're always growing. I'm 43 years old, and I know that I'm different than what I was yesterday. And I know I'm way different than when I was 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. I think that as human beings, I think we all try to be really creative, and I think we all want to be able to say that we made something, whether that's an artwork or you grow a plant or you made a child, or it's like there's the point of us is always to grow and create and be we're naturally innate creative people. Mm-hmm. But being an artist or being a muralist in particular, it's very exposing. You leave yourself out there, and even if it's something that's corporate, like you're painting a logo for Coca-Cola, it's still your work and you're still making it, and it's still someone be like, well, the C's not the right curve, or the red's not the right Coke red, or you're making something that's completely 100% organic, and you're just out there painting something that has no affiliation with anything, but it's something you're passionate about and you want to do that. And you put your signature on it, and then people are there judging you. And they may not be judging you in particular, but they see your work, and I could be standing next to one of my pieces and people don't know who I am, and they could be like, oh, well, I like that, or I like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then people are like, man, I wouldn't have done that. And I was like, oh, okay. So it is very exposing. And so being an artist, whether that's designing a logo or building a website or painting a painting or doing a mural, you're exposing a part of yourself into that, because you put yourself into these elements of these designs. And so it's hard getting feedback from people that's not what you want.
Yeah. Well, I think almost even more, because it's not just sitting in a gallery. It's on the side of an entire building most of the time.
Sure. Yeah. The murals are they're pretty public. So there's driving by, and like you said, everyone's got an opinion. It's that whole penny for your thoughts, but everyone's got to put in their own 2 cents. It's everyone's got an opinion, and it could be something as simple as, that's the wrong yellow. I wouldn't have done that. And I'm like, well, that's, and me, I want to be defensive. Well, I want it, but it's artistic and it's an opinion.
Yep.
And that's why you create things, Not everyone thinks that, the Mona Lisa is great. Not everyone thinks that, Starry Night is the greatest painting ever.
Yeah, speaking of that, like I was listening to a podcast because I'm kind of nerdy, but Neil deGrasse Tyson, he was talking about, he's like, I'm an astrophysicist and I know exactly what the star looks like or what the stars look like. And I look at Starry Night. It's like, I know that's not what they look like. He's like, he didn't realize until a couple of years ago. He's like, I finally realized that that's how it made him feel.
Yeah.
He's like, I can respect that and I can
Sure.
get down with that,
Sure.
But it took him a while to kind of sit back and quit looking at it from his own perspective, but from the artist's perspective of
Sure.
what
Especially
that was.
when you're coming from an academic mindset, there's a lot of, not everything has to be in portrait or perspective because that's the license of the artist. So, a bird might have a giant head and a small wing, but that's the way that they interpret that thing. And so me being a person that's literal, it's like, well, that's not what a bird looks like. But then I got to sit back and be like, whoa, man, you're an artist and you're a creative. And if that's how that person made that and that's what they wanted to do, that's awesome.
That's what that bird looks like.
Because that's what they want to do, and that's creative, and I love that for them, and I think that that's really cool. So, me having my skill set versus another artist, I think it's just it's a fun opportunity to see how everyone else interprets the world, and I think that's something we as a society need to, open our eyes to a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. So, also, sitting and looking around town, how does it make you feel that some of your murals and stuff are kind of becoming landmarks?
Me, most people that know me, I don't take compliments well. I'm just kind of more like a thanks, and I move on because it's just, I don't mean to be that cynical person, but being in again, I reiterated, I'm trying to sort through my own mental health nonsense right now. I'm one of those people that kind of looks at it and it's like, okay, so you thought that was cool, but what did you not like? So if someone's like, well, if it was my opinion, I wouldn't have made that pink. And I was like, okay, I knew it. And so I focus on that. So it's hard for me to take a compliment in an aspect of saying that something is becoming landmark or iconic or something like that. And as much as I appreciate that, it's hard for me to put that together. But if I'm going to answer it, I don't know. I guess it makes me kind of happy because I look at a lot of the murals and the old signs around town and the ghost signs that have been here. The Bourbon Barrel mural and the mural on the side of Elmer's. It's like, those are cool. They've been here for a long time and people know them. The mural on the side of the Scotts building has been here for a very long time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
People recognize it, and it's becoming iconic. And it's like, even the murals on the side of Stan Gates building where the old fire department was, the horses, it's like, those are becoming staples of what Pocatello's art scene is now. So for the point of me having some of that in there, it makes me feel good knowing like, okay, I'm kind of hanging out with some of the history in town, and that's neat. But I also know that a lot of that is also just temporary. Like the city of Pocatello could decide one day that let's play Pocatello on the side of Simplot Park isn't what they want to do anymore. Or not Simplot Park, I'm sorry, Lookout Point Park. And they're like, well, maybe that's not what we want to do anymore. So they paint over it, or they have another artist come in and paint over it. And it's like, sure, it would make me sad to see that disappeared. And also it's a fairly new mural, so it's hard for me to be like, whoa, that just disappeared. I just finished it. It's like, but I do hope, when I'm long gone from this earth and my kids are around, my grandkids or whatever, it's like, it would be nice to know that if they were able to drive by it and be like, oh yeah, my grandpa made that, or my great grandpa made that, or someone else is like, oh yeah, I know so and so, or and they like, it would be neat to say that I'm a part of that history, but because it's so immediate right now, it's hard for me to be, embrace that. But
to have a few of them last as long as the Peterson building, stuff,
sure. So I'll
enough for the paint to crack and peel and
So
still be left there.
I appreciate the comment that people are like, yeah, it's become a staple, or it's it's kind of a landmark thing. But a lot of the neons, for example, going off on that tangent, those have been here for a long time, and I hope they outlive me. And if I'm able to help Randy Dixon with Relight Tonight, again, another nonprofit, little plug there, they do a lot of cool stuff. And so if I'm able to be a part of that and help keep those neons restored and looking crispy and looking great. And, the goal, especially with neons, is you want to drive by them and look like you've never done anything to them. Like you want to drive by and see the Oasis neon look brand new. And someone's like, oh, there was something wrong with it before. That's the goal. You always want them to look brand new, like they just rolled off the line.
That's becoming a lost art too.
Yeah. Yeah. So hand painting all that stuff and doing all the pinstriping is something I really enjoy. I like the meticulousness of it, but I also like looking at something that's old and beat up and rusted and knowing that I've sanded it and primed it and fixed it and updated it. And, someone else is reeling on all the tubing and so these old signs are new again and they'll hopefully outlast me. These neons have been here since the 30s and 40s and 50s and they'll hopefully well past me. And, like the Cowboy Oil sign was neat because when I'm up there painting it, inside the panels, everyone has signed it of when they've fixed things or redone things or repaired it. So it was really neat that I was able to put my signature on there and be a part of these 8 other people that have worked on this thing from, I think 1937 was the original sign. And then they even added neon and added so it's neat that inside the sign, there's this timeline of the history of the sign. And it makes me feel good that I'm a part of that. It's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Well, we got just a couple more questions for you, and then we'll let you go.
Sure.
But yeah, these ones are a little bit different than kind of what we've been asking. But if you had unlimited funding or support from the community, what would you create?
Oh, man. Oh, if I had unlimited funding from the city, I would probably say in historic downtown. I'm a little biased because I like historic downtown. It's got a lot of vibe and a lot of character. I would build I think I would probably develop out like a youth center event kind of complex thing. And I know that sounds kind of messy, but it's like I would want it to be like an event center where things could happen in downtown. I would want to have something that's more interactive for kids, like a trampoline park, indoor playground, something, because if it's February and it's -15 outside, I still want to be able to let kids use it. Something like that, build all that out, but then also have like a fun, interactive, messy, wet space for kids. And then also have like a really high-end gallery in it, if that makes sense. So it's like this kind of like fusion hybrid kind of blend of things is what I would like to do.
Oh, yeah. How can people best support local artists like you beyond just buying art?
I'd say, I know people hate saying the word exposure. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a crutch for a lot of people to use as an excuse. Like, oh, well, I'll just do this on trade where it'll be good exposure for you if you do this for free. I have a problem with that. I say exposure is good because I sign my work intentionally. I don't advertise. My work has been successful by word of mouth only. I don't do Facebook ads. I don't do, market vendors. I don't go buy billboards. I don't pay for commercials. I just do all my stuff's word of mouth and referrals. And I think that especially in a community like this, a good friend of mine, Heidi, who owns Jerry's Jumbos, brought it up one day and it just kind of clicked with me is she wants to do this phrasing called community over competition. And I think that that's what we need to be. I think as a community, we need to, be able to share the love and, oh, you like this mural, so-and-so did this, or, hey, you like that shirt design? Well, so-and-so designed that for me, or, hey, that guy did this great thing for me. And I think that that's really where I think we need to be as a community. And so to me, exposure and referral, I think that goes a long way. Obviously, I want everyone to buy my art and pay for my art and do that stuff. But, being positive and going on these referral things and being like, hey, you want someone local? This guy's awesome. Or you want to work with this girl because she's just a rock star that does this. And I think that that's really where we can, as a cohesive artist collective, I think we need to just be able to be at a point where we can just know that we can all share the love. There's plenty of work out there for everyone. So word of mouth, I think, is huge exposure for everyone.
Absolutely. And I think that really aligns with kind of why we're doing the podcast, is highlighting a lot of people like that I think make a difference in the community, but also a lot of the interesting things that people may not realize that they can do here, and the opportunities that actually are here to live a good life and fulfilled life, and, have respect for the arts, and, hopefully come out and support. So we really appreciate you coming and stopping by.
Yeah. Well, thank you. My last 2 cents, and I would plug this in before we wrap up. And this is just a good word of the wise for everyone. Rather than hopping on Facebook or Yelp or whatever and just throwing some nasty review down, why don't you try and reach out to the people and talk to them before you just trash their name online? Because bad news, as we've already talked about, we're trying to be healthy and positive, and, sun's up and sun's shining, and that's a good thing, and you're above ground. Good news does not travel as fast as bad news. And if you go to a restaurant and you have a bad experience there, don't just sandbag the restaurant because you had a bad day. You have no idea what's going on in that place previously. So call that person and just say, hey, let's talk on the phone. Hey, this is what happened in this restaurant today. And I'm, or with me, it's like, hey, I worked with this other guy and he's not someone that I want to work with. Call and talk. Don't just sit there and just throw the hate out online, because that travels and that just becomes infectious so quickly. And so many people are on those hate monger rallies where they're like, yeah, let's burn everything down. And that's so quick for everyone to jump to. So rather than being that person that's starting that, make a phone call, talk to someone directly. Hey, I had a bad experience yesterday here. What can we do to fix this? Or here's some advice for you for the future, rather than just throwing it out there on Yelp or Facebook, because it just becomes infectious so quickly.
Just say hello to the people.
Yeah. So throw the positive out there. Throw the vibes. Hey, this was a great experience. I loved this cup of coffee. This was the coolest thing ever. That's what we need to do. But if I've always been told from my leadership stuff and being a scout leader and everything else in the past, it's, you praise in public and punish in private.
Yeah.
So give the shout outs, throw the people their roses, be that part of that guy that's like really, positive for everyone. But if you've really got an issue with someone, pull them off to the side and be like, hey, let's figure this out.
Yep. Absolutely.
So that'd be my thought. Let's praise in public, and let's talk about our issues somewhere else other than on the internet, because that never goes away.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
So thanks,
you have a good one, Nick.
Thanks.